You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
All right, welcome back to 91 Reasons. I am the voice, Jeff Tucker, and we're going to talk today about, well, it's the one we've been waiting to talk about, isn't it? Attack of the Clones. So Attack of the Clones came out in 2002, continuing the 3-year cycle between Star Wars movies that George Lucas pioneered, 77, 80, 83, and now 99, 2002, 2005. So we knew at the end of Phantom Menace, we knew that 3 years later there would be another Star Wars movie. And I always use the analogy like, you date a girl and it's terrible. And you go on a date and it's the worst, and you think, I'll go again, because there's simply no way it can be worse than what it was. You sure the car caught on fire or we got arrested? It can't be any worse, right? And that's how we all felt, or how I felt, leaving Phantom Menace in 99, thinking simply that there's no way a Star Wars movie could be worse than that, because Phantom Menace is a bad movie. It commits so many sins, the worst of which simply being that it's boring. Phantom Menace is boring in so many parts. You could trim probably 45 minutes out of Phantom Menace and make a tighter, more coherent, and more enjoyable. Enjoyable's in italics film, because I don't know how enjoyable it could be. You can watch the pod race and some of the big battle at the end. I mean, the big battle's not even that good. But the point being, when you left the theater, when I left the theater, 99, and I think I saw Phantom Menace 2 or 3 times in the theater, because the first time you're just so hyped up, you're just so excited, you don't know what you're watching. It just all goes by in a blur, a boring blur, but a blur nonetheless. And then the second time, okay, I know what's going to happen. I can actually pay attention. Okay, he's really demystifying the Force. Oh, good. And the kid's really annoying, and Jar Jar is really offensive, and it's just bad all the way around. But there's no way it could be 2 in a row. There's no way, other than Transformers, it's hard to think of a big budget franchise where every chapter is awful, because The Matrix is great and the 2 sequels are terrible. Most of the franchises, you get one right, whether it's the first or the third. The first you're setting it up, the third you're wrapping it up. But boy, the prequel trilogy is an anomaly in that they're all terrible. But none of them are as terrible or as awful as Attack of the Clones. Now, I've already done a full podcast, or at least I attempted to, on Attack of the Clones. You can look up the Kevin Gregg, Gregg, 2 G's at the end, Kevin Gregg podcast, where one of his bonus episodes is me railing on Attack of the Clones for a while. Now, there were some other people there, so the conversation got a little bit derailed. This time, this one will be a little more pure. And it's weird to think that this is a movie I saw one time in the theater, and I tried to watch it on DVD for that other podcast, and that was years ago. And I think I got about 30 minutes in, and I couldn't watch another minute of it. Attack of the Clones is not only the worst Star Wars movie, but it is one of the worst big-budget franchise movies of all time. Attack of the Clones is so bad, it is hard to find something equally bad. It's just really terrible. And I'm setting it up. I'm really setting it up that there's nowhere to go but down here, because from the get-go, this movie's terrible. Now, remember, okay, I saw it in 2002, and I think we saw it at the new downtown Disney AMC. It had just opened, or it had been open for a year or so. And the big deal with Clones was that it was the first major release that if you found the right theater, it was being shown digitally. Now, most of us had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what it meant, other than they promised it would be very clear and very sharp. And it was. It's a beautiful presentation, a beautiful picture. And what started out as a gimmick now has become the norm, because if you go into an older theater and you watch a movie that's still on film, they look totally different. They have the cigarette burns, the scratches, the whole bit. And I have to admit, I've become quite a snob, because it's hard for me to even watch a projected movie on film, because you can see every little anomaly. And even on DVD, you can totally tell where nobody cleaned up this print. I've got a bunch of early DVDs that I bought, because I bought my machine pretty early, late 99. The first DVDs I bought were The Matrix and Austin Powers, because The Matrix was that was the only way to get all that bonus material, and I had to have it. And that first DVD player cost me like $300. I mean, it's weird to think now they're like $35-$40 or even cheaper, but that first machine cost $300. And a lot of the DVDs that came out, I bought them early, back when every DVD was $30, because they were still, they were special. And a lot of them look terrible, because they didn't bother to clean it up, even so much as to dust off the print while they were transferring it over. Some of them have dirt on them, and I think I've even seen a couple that have hairs on the lens, like they weren't even thinking. And I don't think some of those movies, because they're catalog titles, they've ever even gone back and cleaned them up and fixed them. But Clones was the first major release to be shown digitally, and that was a big selling point. And what a selling point it was, because here was a movie being shown digitally that had more digital effects in it than any film in history. Even Phantom Menace 3 years earlier, a lot of people think that's completely CGI, but there's a lot of really good model work in Phantom Menace. The palace on Theed is a beautiful model with salt being used for waterfalls. If you see some of those making of books, it's not the craftsman's fault who built all that. The movie was so bad. They did their best building these amazing models to blow up. It was before they really got good at doing digital explosions. They can do the fireball, but the debris is what took so long to program on how it's supposed to look, chaotic and frenzied and flying around. So Attack of the Clones was a big step forward in digital effects, and being shown digitally really cemented that. But let's, against my better judgment, and I have not watched the movie recently, so what you're going to get is my continued recollection, my continued hate of this awful film from 2002, which is at this point over a decade ago. And it still simmers how bad it is. The movie opens with the Queen's new starship landing on Coruscant. And let's just take a moment. Let's take a little sidebar right here and talk about how in the original Star Wars trilogy, Han Solo flies the Millennium Falcon. That's his ship. He lives on it with Chewie. They use it for their business. They fly around. Luke has an X-Wing. You never really see Luke flying anything else. Sure, he gets behind the wheel in Jedi. He gets behind the wheel of the shuttle. But for the most part, Luke flies an X-Wing. Every character has their definitive ships that they fly, and the ships personify their personality. It's a major reason why we like those movies, is that it has that lived-in look of, this is my car, this is what I drive. And in the prequels, these guys drive a different vehicle every sequence. Nothing lasts. Oh my God, nothing lasts. The Queen is now driving a different chrome ship. It's completely shaped different. This one looks like an airplane, and it's coming out of the clouds, and once again we get this dull opening of a ship landing. It'd be like opening a movie with somebody parallel parking. Okay, yes, it's a spaceship, but it's still just parking. And then there's an explosion, and the Queen has been, the Queen's coming down the walkway, and it blows up. Well, oh my goodness, the whole audience quakes, because Queen Amidala must have been killed in the first 2 seconds. Now, we know this isn't true, because the trailers have shown her in various outfits running around, with finally, they're showing her midriff with their homage to Carrie Fisher's metal bikini, the slave Leia costume. So we know that Amidala's not going to get killed in the first 2 minutes, right? There's no mystery there. And so what happens is the ship blows up, and then the guide vehicle that was sort of accompanying them down, the escort, the pilot jumps out, runs over, doesn't take off their helmet because it's the Queen. We know it's the Queen. This is the worst directing ever. Any normal person would have taken their helmet off because there's no reason to keep your helmet on at this sequence. The jig is up. The decoy has fulfilled her job. She's been killed. She gave her life to save the Queen. So her job has been right. There's no reason to keep up the charade that it's not the Queen flying the other ship. So it's just a case of really bad writing, really mediocre directing, no tension. It starts the movie off with a whimper, and it just goes downhill from there. I don't know how long I can talk about Attack of the Clones because I'm gonna end up losing my voice quite quickly because I despise this movie so much. And then we're treated to the reintroduction of Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, in normal movies where the director really cares about the movie, characters are given entrances, grand ways to enter, and he did that in A New Hope. Darth Vader enters amid a shower of sparks through the burnt door of the Tantive 4 ship, Princess Leia's blockade runner. It's a great entrance for a villain. It's destructive, it's dramatic. You've got to have panache, In Return of the Jedi, Richard Marquand has Vader coming down the shuttle door. So the walkway comes down, and there comes Vader, triumphant. It's a very big moment. In Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan and Anakin are introduced in an elevator. There's nothing space about it. It may have been the elevator at the Bonaventure Hotel. There's nothing exciting about it. And then they have, no joke, I mean, you've seen the movie. If you're listening to this podcast, you've seen this crap fest. Then they have a conversation that lasts 3 or 4 long minutes with a little bit of exposition and the idea that Anakin is, he's now in love with Padme beyond all measure, blah, blah, blah. It's the first hint that this movie's going to be worse than a Phantom Menace because we've got Hayden Christensen there and we've got Hayden Christensen as our new Anakin. After months of exhaustive auditioning, Lucas was able to find someone even more grating and annoying than Jake Lloyd as our lead character. It boggles the mind. And it's weird to think that at one point a lot of big actors like Leonardo DiCaprio and I think even Justin Timberlake were contacted about this. And who knows what the movie would have been with somebody with real chops, because Hayden is so bad. And you know what? I think everybody deserves blame on this one. I think Hayden deserves blame for his wooden, awful performance, and George Lucas deserves blame because he's given the guy nothing to work with. It's a complete mess all the way around. He says it's intoxicating to be around her. I've said this for a while that George Lucas doesn't know how humans interact with each other, and that will get evident later on in the movie, and it will be even more evident in a more horrific way in Revenge of the Sith. But I don't think we're going to have time to get to the Sith part. So Anakin and Obi-Wan are in an elevator, and we get some blah, blah, blah. We get some exposition, and then the story is continuing. And the first big set piece is the council has decided that Padme's in danger because she's been, an assassination attempt has happened on her. So they have Jedi protect her. It's Anakin and Obi-Wan. They're going to protect her while she's on Coruscant. And the sequence that follows is so mind-bogglingly bad that you wonder if anybody took a look at this before they started filming. There are so many elements that go into making a movie, so many days and weeks of work, that it's astounding when you don't start with a piece of paper and a coherent script and scene. Instead, we're treated to this ridiculous sequence where Amidala is asleep and Obi-Wan and Anakin, who've been hired to protect her, are standing, their guard next door with a closed door, right? But that's okay because they've got R2-D2 in the room with her, right? R2-D2 is a robot. He runs on energy. He, for some reason, powers down. Let's let that sit in the air for a minute. They got a robot guarding the queen, or the senator now, who powers down. What the hell were they thinking? The writing is so bad. The reason you have a robot guarding the princess, queen, senator person, Amidala, is so that they never are off guard. They're always on guard. Always, always, always. So what happens, of course, the minute he powers down, this robot zooms to the window, melts the glass with this laser, or opens the glass, whatever it is, drops these centipedes in the room, right? And they're going to go up and kill Amidala. It's the second assassination attempt. It's the very thing that the Jedi have been sent to prevent. But apparently their Jedi senses, they have no concept, no clue that there's not an evil robot, because how are robots evil, right? They're only doing what they're programmed to do. But there's a danger, right? R2 is able to turn on in time. Thank goodness you decided to turn on in time. And between R2 and Anakin, they kill the little centipede things. And then Obi-Wan, he's so reckless, he jumps out the window and hangs onto the robot that sent the centipedes, right? He's been railing, like already in the movie, I think we're like 15 minutes in or something. He's already railed on Anakin for his compulsiveness. And what does Obi-Wan do? Jumps onto a flying chandelier-looking robot thing and zooms off, right? It's completely absurd. I'm sure that on paper, I'm sure that in production meetings, this was like, oh my God, we're going to have a cool sequence, and more importantly, a toy with a figure that holds on, and we're going to zoom through Coruscant. So then Anakin runs and gets his hot rod, because it's a George Lucas movie, so there always has to be some sort of hot rod. And this one's yellow, just like John Milner's in American Graffiti. And he zooms off, and we have this chase through traffic, which is really strange because it's all CGI. I don't know for certain how much, or if any, there was model work done. I know they had a full-size speeder and a full-size robot for Obi-Wan to hang on. Other than that, it's hard to tell what's real. It's probably a lot of CGI, and they zoom through, and you get to see a Doug, which is it's not the host of the season pass. No, a Doug in the Star Wars universe is what Sebulba was, the other pod racer. So we get the idea. Oh, he gets to go fast too, and he gets cut off, so he has to make the same exclamation that Sebulba made. Like, it's just these. It's funny because when you echo something good in a movie, when there's an homage or an echo of something good, it's welcoming. Like you're into it, you like it. But when it's echoing something stupid, it's like all it's doing is reminding you. It's like, oh, remember that stupid thing? Yeah, we're still doing that. Well, thanks, George. Of course you are. So we have this chase, and what I was getting to is that if you watch The Fifth Element from 1997, 5 years prior, the flying car chase scene is 10 times better, and it's all done practical with models. It's much better. Just that the cars have more weight. There's more danger to it. The chase in Attack of the Clones is just superfluous. Like, it doesn't solve anything. It's just a way to bridge scenes with color. There's this whole thing with digital projectors that, much the same way that like the original Batman show was designed to sell color TVs because people wanted to see it in color. They were being told color is the new way, black and white is out. You got to get a color TV to watch these shows. I think that a lot of movies of this era, and Attack of the Clones led the way, was as much color and brilliance on the screen as you can get to justify buying these $100,000 digital projector units for the theater. And I'm sure the theater owners love that. Like, oh, great, another upgrade. Thanks, George. So we have this chase, and watch this movie. If you're watching it while I'm talking, God bless you, because you're a better person than I am. I couldn't do it. But there's a sequence where there's an electrical field that zooms up, and they have this moment of, oh, don't drive through that, and then they drive through it, and then nothing happens. Like, I'm not even sure. Again, it's just action for action's sake with no consequences, no results. It's just we're moving the characters from point A to point B, And then there's this whole, they're jumping around, and one guy's in the car, the other guy jumps out. I hate when he does that. Oh, man. And then, the dialogue where Anakin says, oh, master, don't do that. Yes, master. It's so bad. It's so stilted and bland. There's nothing dynamic about it. These are Jedi in their prime. This is what we, the Star Wars fans, have been waiting forever, because we didn't get it in Phantom Menace. There's one big duel at the end, but we didn't get to see Jedi in their prime, and that's what the Obi-Wan-Anakin relationship is supposed to show us. Like, this is what it's like to be a working Jedi in the universe. These are the things that you're sent out to do, The first one, they were sent out to negotiate trade franchise disputes. What? In this one, at least it's action. You're guarding the queen, and even that it's done so bland and so boring. You're drumming your fingers waiting for the next sequence. And boy, is the next sequence a doozy, because then we're introduced to Zam Wessel, right? And we only know Zam Wessel because they put a toy of her out before the movie came out. And that's how all Star Wars characters get their names, from the toys, because nobody in the movie stops to go, listen, Zam Wessel. And they go, yes, I'm Zam Wessel. You're Zam Wessel? Really? So Zam Wessel has the one that had sent the centipedes out, right? And when they introduce Zam Wessel, she's next to a neon sign because, again, we need bright colors on the screen. And she's got a laser rifle. Now, she's pointing at you. At that moment, I thought, oh, well, this is going to be good, because she has no allegiance to anybody. She's a contract killer, right? She's going to kill Obi-Wan. How are they going to get him out of this? He's defenseless. He needs his hands to hold on to the robot. He can't get to his lightsaber. Anakin is not near to zoom up. She's going to shoot him. But what does she do? She shoots her own equipment. Let that one lay there for a second. She shoots her own equipment. There's a guy. You should see me. I'm pointing like you can see this Jedi holding on to this robot in the distance. It's a guy holding on to the robot. She knows that this can't be good, because no sane person would do this unless they had a really good reason, right? So she has every reason to shoot Obi-Wan in the face and end this. Now, we know she won't be successful, because Obi-Wan's going to make it all the way through the first Death Star infiltration, right? We know this as fans. So he's not in any real danger. But like a Schwarzenegger film, the surprises are not that he got out of it, but how he got out of it. We know Arnold's going to be triumphant in the end. And the reason we go is to see how he is triumphant in the end, right? So she shoots her own equipment. Obi-Wan drops. There's a little skirmish, and she takes off, right, in her ship. And then they have to do another chase through the streets. So they're chasing through the streets, right? And I think this is where that lightning field comes into play, which, again, I talked about it before. It makes no sense. And then they make all this deal because Zam Wessel, crashes down and runs into a club, right? And there's been one shot of her face rippling, to say she's a shapeshifter. And even if the audience didn't get that, Anakin or Obi-Wan, I don't know, one of the idiots says, careful, she's a shapeshifter. So I thought, okay, see, when I go to the movies, I'm an eternal optimist. I want to fall in love. I want the movie to be great. I'm pulling for it to be great. And I'm pulling for no movie more than a Star Wars movie. I want to love this movie. But then they do stuff like this, because she goes in the club, and as the audience member, you've been told she's a shapeshifter. So she's going to walk in the club, shapeshift as someone else, and they're never going to find her. This is brilliant because then I get to see how do they find her. Because if they don't find her, the story won't continue. So you know they're going to find her. Again, it's how, not if, because we know they're going to. So Obi-Wan and Anakin dive bomb into the intergalactic Dave and Buster's, which is, it's jarringly bad. We get the death stick scene, which is cute, but we also are treated to like moment where people turn around and we're like, oh my gosh, it's Ahmed Best who plays Jar Jar Binks. Oh my gosh, it's Anthony Daniels, and these take you right out of the movie. And if these don't take you out of the movie, the fact that they're playing video games, Star Wars video games on the big screens, that'll take you right out of the movie because you're like, wait a minute, that's like Star Wars Racer or something, and they're watching that on the screen. Oh, this is embarrassing. And to make matters worse, this whole scene is supposed to echo the cantina from A New Hope. And if you didn't get that point driven home by the aliens smoking cigarettes and looking, dark and moody in this brightly lit neon garish casino, or the intergalactic Dave and Buster's, like I call it, when they do finally catch up with Zam Wessel, who hasn't changed at all, they cut her arm off. Just like Walrus Man in the Cantina. Remember how I said where you want movies to pay homage to when they were really good? This is an example that's not good because all it's doing is reminding you of a better movie. Like, oh, we already saw this, and it was a lot better before when it was a lot simpler and all this crap wasn't flinging around the screen, right? So again, there's another head-scratching moment just moments later where they drag her outside and they're trying to get her to talk because they want to know who hired her to kill the queen. And then across the way we see, dun, 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 Jango Fett. Now, we know Jango Fett because of all the toys that have been made of Jango Fett. There were more Jango Fett toys for this movie than any other character before the movie came out, man. Everybody knew that this was the silver and blue Boba Fett. Jango Fett, man, and we knew he was going to factor in. It was going to be just like Empire Strikes Back, beat for beat, man. And there it is, plain as day. There's Jango Fett. And what does he do? He's got a gun that he's going to shoot or whatever. And what does he do? What does he do? Oh, my God. The same way that Zam Wessel shot her own robot instead of Obi-Wan, Jango Fett shoots Zam Wessel. He can shoot either Jedi right there. He's got them dead to rights. I don't think they even see him until it's all over with. That's how badass Jango Fett is. Like, the Jedi aren't even aware that guy's there until bang, dang, snickety snick. What, Jedi? This dart comes out and kills Zam Wessel, right? You're thinking, oh, this is... Well, first of all, it's stupid, because who wouldn't just kill the Jedi? You kill all three, there's no trace, nobody to get you, nobody knows nothing. Beautiful, right? No, it's not beautiful, because good for us, Jango Fett has used a poison dart to kill Zam Wessel that happens to have, like, the manufacturer's name on it. So, here we go. We're led to, it's hard to believe, like, if I was describing one of these scenes in a Star Wars movie, it would be enough almost to taint the whole movie. But it's one after another. Like, I'm just stringing them together the way the movie does. And it is staggering that all of this crap is contained in such a short amount of time in this movie, because we haven't even progressed very far. We've had so much bad that the only way to go even deeper is to go to a Star Wars 50s diner. A 50s diner. There's a 50s diner on Coruscant that looks just like the diner in Diner, where they dined at the diner, And in case you didn't get that point, the waitress is named Flo. The waitress is named Flo. And she's like, "What can I get you, hon, toots?" Like, this is so unbelievably embarrassing that I remember in the theater just looking around and saying, does anybody as offended as I am that this is being thrown on the screen. And then Dexter Jetster comes out, a big hulking, four-armed Mel Sharpton from Alice, right? He comes out. Now, he knows, apparently, how to make intergalactic omelets, cheeseburgers, and he dabbles in obscure weaponry. And he's able to tell Obi-Wan where this dart came from. Which, if Jango had just shot them, well, they'd be dead and they wouldn't be able to pursue the case. Or if he had just used an unmarked bullet, everything would have been fine. The characters make such cornball mistakes. And for Jango Fett, who is being pumped up as not only the greatest bounty hunter in the world, Boba Fett's father, for God's sake, he makes rookie mistakes like easily identifiable weaponry. Like, this is so dumb. I'm saying it, and I can't believe I'm saying it, that it really happened, that this movie really existed. It wasn't all just a bad dream. But then what this does is it propels the story into two areas, which is typical of Star Wars, where somebody, Luke goes one way, Han goes one way. Instead, it's Anakin and Padme head to Naboo to they head to Naboo to keep her safe. I guess if you're being wanted by everyone in the galaxy, everybody wants you dead, the one place you should go is your home planet. And there we meet the new queen, the newly elected queen. I'm sorry, what? The newly elected queen? Well, how can that be? Queens, you're either a queen or you're not. How are you elected queen? Naboo has the most ridiculous form of government ever. So this sequence goes down as some of the most awkward scenes put on film. It's quite distressing how bad the Anakin-Padme relationship is handled. Their love affair is just, it's gross. It's really strange. That scene in Groundhog Day where Bill Murray and Andie MacDowell are rolling in the snow, and for her it's the first time, but for him, I think he's been doing this 30 or 40 times, and the last time that we see in the movie, he's going through the motions. He's trying to make it sound organic and feel organic for her, but to him, he has done this so many times, he's bored to tears of, a snow fight, a snowball fight. That's what this feels like. Anakin is just like a robot going through the motions of a movie he watched about love. They cavort around in the grass. Like, I blame Lucas. Like, these two actors, they're good-looking people. They could have faked their way through falling in love, but instead they're given this bad amount of dialogue and rolling around action. Like, who rolls around on the ground? Like, they're not 6. I mean, they're not staring up at clouds, making them into dinosaurs. They're adults, and this is not how adults court. Like, it really isn't. It's just weird. And then there's that strange sequence at the fire where Padme is dressed like a dominatrix in black leather, and the whole time she's saying, I can't do this, I'm a senator. Like, somehow being in government means you can't fall in love, and he's a Jedi, so he can't fall in love. So they're two young, gorgeous people who've been strangled of love because of their career choices. Like, what are we doing? Is this? You want to ask Lucas? Is this because their love needs to be somehow forbidden, and that's more tantalizing and more? If it's taboo, it's sexier. It's okay to just have them fall in love. It's okay for them to just say, hey, we've gone through a lot together. Why wouldn't we fall in love? We're two young people. We've seen death. We've seen destruction. We see in each other our salvation and our way of rising above the darkness that's constantly surrounding us of death threats and genocide. But no, instead it's this, I don't know, like this school children falling in love over milk and cookies kind of thing, and then it turns weird at the fireside. Like, I can't fall in love with you, Anakin, but I took time to put on this incredibly revealing sexual outfit. Like, I am lost on what the point of this section of the movie is. Like, I know for the greater story arc why it's there, because Anakin and Padme have to fall in love or Luke and Leia won't exist. Like, that's the problem with this whole prequel trilogy, is that all the outcomes are preordained. We know what they're racing towards. So if you're not going to make the journey exciting, there's no reason to take it. Let me take a breath now. Thank you. So for some reason or another, it's deemed too dangerous to stay on Naboo, so they hightail it over to Tatooine. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan has found Kamino on the star map with this really stupid sequence where Yoda and these children are making fun of him while they train for, I don't know, lightsaber training. Like, lightsabers were, let's take a small tangent and talk about lightsabers, shall we? In A New Hope, Obi-Wan takes that lightsaber out of the chest and hands it to Luke like, this is the greatest artifact in the universe. And to us kids, when we saw that, it was. All the weight that Alec Guinness gives that weapon, we bought. And yet here we are in a sequel where Anakin's lightsaber is treated like just another weapon you could pick up at the store. You know, we were always taught that building your lightsaber was how you became a Jedi. You went through these trials. And this is all inferred through novels. This is not in the movie. This is just fanboy nonsense. I get it. But that lightsabers were important, that you couldn't just go buy one. That creating the lightsaber infused with your force is what made it special, you know? In the Harry Potter movies, when Ron breaks his wand, he has to fix it. He doesn't just go and buy another one because he's bonded with this one. And the lightsabers were always presented that way. So when Obi-Wan gives Anakin his lightsaber, he goes, "This weapon is your life." Like, he's scolding him for losing another one. Well, that's not the way it's supposed to be. Why is that? Why is that? So then we're shown a room full of children all holding lightsabers 2 feet from each other, where if one kid slips, they're all just going to get beheaded, which would be Lucas's style anyways. So anyways, Obi-Wan goes and visits the intergalactic librarian, who of course has her own action figure that nobody cares about, and finds out that Kamino has been deleted from the logs. Now, this is a story thread that is never picked up again as to who deleted this and why. I'm sure someone will tell me, well, it was Darth Sidious or whatever, Darth Tyrannus or some Darth, whatever. But he flies out to the unmarked system, and it's water, because in Lucas's world, every planet is a singular climate, whether it's snow or swamp or whatever. This one's water, right? And he finds this base, and that's where the Kamino cloners come in, these big long neck guys. And go ahead, watch this sequence on DVD or Blu-ray. Watch this sequence, and you've seen this in 1,000 movies, right? And the person who does it best is James Bond. And what I mean by that is the main character, it doesn't matter, goes into a building because he needs to get in there, right? He's not supposed to be there, but he goes in, he meets somebody, and the person says, "Oh, you're so-and-so, and you're here for this." And if it's James Bond, he goes, "Why, yes, of course, I'm Mr. Brown, and I'm here to check the schematics. Show me the way." And then he infiltrates in because somebody is stupid. That's writing 101. That's the way you do it, right? So in this instance, the cloners tell Obi-Wan, "Oh, you're here for the clones." And he goes, "I'm here for what?" "Oh, yes, I'm here for the clones." Okay, you get one time on that, because Obi-Wan now has been told what they're doing there. They've mistaken him for somebody else, and they're going to give him all the information he wants. That's all he has to do is say, yes, and. It's an improv game. Yes, and. Because no stops the scene, right? I'm not seeing the movie in a while. I've told you that. But I would bet there's 3 instances in that tiny sequence where they give Obi-Wan information, and instead of saying, yes, and, he says, Oh, yes, of course I'm that guy here for that thing. One time, man. One time is what you get, because everything after that is superfluous. You do it more than once, and the person on the other end goes, wait a minute, this isn't the guy. This isn't the guy. And you'd be suspect, and they'd throw him right out. And instead, they show him this gigantic clone army that these guys have been gestating for over a decade, right? How convenient. Isn't it great? And they all look like, dun-dun-dun, Jango Fett and his clone son, Boba. This is the most screwed up, dysfunctional family ever, right? There's no mom, and the father is father to a son that's a clone of him, so he's raising himself, right? Oh, boy. And this is where, once again, like, okay, we demystified the Force in Phantom Menace. In a single sequence, we took all the wind out of that sail, right? So now we get to take all the wind out of the stormtroopers, because since Jango Fett, since the stormtrooper in A New Hope hits his head on the Death Star door, Jango Fett must now hit his head on the Slave One door, right? So, you're sitting there in the theater and you're asking, are they telling me that all the stormtroopers are that guy? Wait a minute, because I thought you were drafted into the Imperial Army. I thought the Clone War had ended. This is obviously the Clone War we're witnessing the birth of, right? But, and you know what? It's never even explained. It's never even brought up again. I don't know if the stormtroopers are this guy. I don't think anybody really knows, because by the time they get to A New Hope, they should just be enlisting people who want to serve the Empire. Because if it was just clones, then they would just run rampant over everything. There'd be no stopping them. They'd have an army that would just keep regenerating and regenerating and regenerating. But instead, they're defeated. They blow up the Death Star. There isn't a whole armada of fresh clones waiting just to the left of that or just to the right. So the whole clone thing is just, after the Clone Wars, it's stupid to bring them up in canon as far as are the stormtroopers, blah blah blah. They're just guys in uniform, right? Because if they were clones, you'd teach them how to shoot straight. And I know there's this theory that on the Death Star, the first time around, that the stormtroopers all shoot bad because they're letting Han and Leia and Luke escape, right? But, I think that's wishful thinking after the fact, Yes, they wanted to get to the Rebel base, but I don't think letting the princess go would have, there's a point. I think there's a point in the plan where they realize, look, we're going to lose more troops. We should just let them turn off the tractor beam, let them get out and take us to, and I think that, take us to the Rebel base. And I think that might have happened. But to say that the reason they all shoot bad is because of that, that's giving George Lucas too much credit. And I'm not apt to do that. So Obi-Wan signals back, and then we have this next action sequence where Slave One is chasing Obi-Wan's starship through the asteroid field. And again, it's supposed to ape the asteroid field in Empire Strikes Back, complete with Slave One and everything. But it's all digital this time. It's not as impressive because none of it exists. Ben Burtt's sound design is really good as far as the negative sound of the bombs that he launches. But the whole thing, again, it's hollow because we know that Obi-Wan's going to get away because it's a prequel. We know the ending before we even start. We know where they're going to match up at the end, right? But what's good is that we get to the next sequence. And oh boy, if you thought what came before was bad, once again, we have found another rock layer, another strata layer of awfulness just below the surface. So they get to Tatooine, which is funny because in the original Star Wars, Luke says that if there's a bright spot centered to the universe, Tatooine is the planet farthest from it. But oh my God, everything seems to be going back to Tatooine. Did Lucasfilm get some sort of rebate check from filming out in various deserts for these films or what? Because it seems like they're always going back to Tatooine. So they get to Tatooine, and they're going to hide out because I guess taking the queen or the senator that everyone's trying to kill back to her home planet in a galaxy full of planets in a billion different hiding spots. They decided to take her back to her home planet and fall in love, blah blah blah, and cavort with giant beasts in the meadow. So they go to Tatooine, and wouldn't you know it, they are right there because they are right there to find out that Anakin's mother has been kidnapped by the Sand People. Now, she was kidnapped. She was kidnapped a month ago. Now, the lead up to all this, you get to see Watto again. A character that we were just dying to catch up with his jaunty little stupid hat that was supposed to be in Episode 1. So in case you didn't get your Watto fix, he's back for more of his stereotype businessman crap. They go to the Lars homestead, and we get to meet Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. I think we need to meet them now or at the end of the movie or at the end of Sith, but it doesn't matter because these kids must have at some point stumbled across the worst packet of drugs they could have taken or something, because by the time we see him in Star Wars, a mere 16, 17 years later, 18 years, however long it is that Luke takes to grow up, they're like ancient, like it's been 40 years, 50 years. Give me a break. How old do you think Uncle Owen is? And I guess I'll save that rant part 2 for when I do Revenge of the Sith. Anakin shows up with this chick, and this guy's like, oh, yeah, I married your mom, and I'm in my floating wheelchair for whatever reason. And, oh, your mom got kidnapped by the Sand People a month ago. That's important, a month ago, because what have they been doing with her for a month, right? So Anakin sets off on his little motorcycle out into the desert. He didn't take the land speeder because we have to sell more toys. He sets out and finds the Sand People village, and God bless him. Anakin either has, however you want to, it's either a half full or half empty kind of situation, because you're either sad that he got there on the very night that she's going to die, or you're happy that he got there right before she died. Either way, it's the most ridiculous galactic coincidence in a movie full of coincidences. Nothing ever happens by chance. He doesn't arrive and find that she's dead or left a message or whatever it is, a little hologram. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What happens is that he gets there on the exact night that she dies so that she can die in his arms. And it's like, hey, dude, if you really cared about your mom so much, what have you been doing all these years? You've been traveling the galaxy with Obi-Wan. You didn't think this guy could have taken, I don't know, a day and a half to drive to Tatooine and free his mom from slavery? From slavery. It's not like she just has a dead-end job on some planet and he's like, I'll visit you, Mom. No, she's enslaved. Okay, and that's why he goes to Watto, like, hey, do you still own my mom? And he's like, no, I sold your mom to another guy. Oh, what? He sold the guy's mom. So Anakin is the most irresponsible, selfish person ever, which is fine, because if that's what you're building up to make him into, to have his fall from grace to become Darth Vader, and that's what you want to do, that's fine. But we're supposed to be on this journey with this guy, and all we get time after time is that he's the biggest jerk we've ever met. We don't like Anakin. He whines. He complains. On top of that, not only is the dialogue bad, but the acting is bad. I'm sure I've said that before, but it bears repeating. It bears repeating that this kid, who's a terrible wooden actor, was given some of the most terrible wooden lines, and a good actor could have done something with them. Somebody with some chops could have done something with him. He arrives at the Sand People village. His mom dies, and he freaks out. So what does he do? He murders everyone. And in case there was a little bit of gray area, he kills everyone, and he wraps the body up of his mom, puts her on the back of his motorcycle, like Fonzie, and he rides back to the homestead, right? And when he gets there, he tells Padme, I killed them all, women, children, men. It's like, well, okay, dude. This is the chick you're supposed to be in love with. You're supposed to be endearing yourself to her. You don't admit to killing an entire village of men, women, and children. Because any rational, normal woman would listen to that for a second and just get the car keys and go. And maybe if she's worth her salt, call the authorities before she leaves. But I swear to God, I'm gonna mess up the order of this because I've not watched this movie. I simply cannot do it. All of this information I've been giving is simply from the horrific images seared into my brain from the 1.5 times I've seen this pile of dreck, right? She asks him, Anakin, what's wrong? What's wrong, Anakin? What's wrong? What's wrong? He's just admitted to slaughtering an entire generation of people, and he's got his mother's corpse on the back of his motorcycle. What do you mean, what's wrong? What isn't wrong? Everything is wrong. Everything in this guy's life is wrong. His mother has been killed, and he didn't take it too well, so he murdered, I don't know, let's lowball it. He murdered 20 people. What is a village of Tusken Raiders? We don't know. We're never given that information, and we can't go find out because they walk single file to avoid giving away their numbers, right? So he kills them all, and they have this I don't know, this ridiculous emotion. Just say it's an emotional moment because I don't know what emotion you're supposed to give to it. One character is saying, I murdered everybody, and the other one is saying, what are you trying to say? So where's the emotion except idiocy? This is two idiots. Anakin is an idiot person, and if Padme thinks that this guy's somehow worth marrying by the end of this movie, and it's not like a long period of time. Star Wars movies are just over a few days, right? It's not like they go on for months for this big war and campaign. It's not like that. It's not like there's a star wipe and it says 3 months or 1 year later. It doesn't do that. She marries this guy just a few days later after he says, I've killed everyone. How is this marrying material? I've seen programs where a woman will break up with a guy because he has a nose whistle. A nose whistle, right? And Anakin's getting a chick after admitting to horrific slaughtering and you want to find a word for murder, a mass murder. He's a mass murderer. What's wrong, Anakin? Oh, I don't know. I've got Tusken blood on my hands, and I'm upset because I don't know if it's man, woman, or child. Let me get the action figures. Now, you know what? They made action figures of this scene. They made action figures of the Tusken Raider, and they made a mom with a little baby. What are you supposed to do with that? Are you supposed to reenact their slaughter and a little baby comes out and then gets killed? It's a wonder they didn't treat it like that Darth Maul figure and cut it in half and put magnets so that your figure could then whack at it with its lightsaber and chop it in half. This is a bad movie. And in a bad movie, these are the worst sequences of all. The Tatooine sequences just are way up there on how bad they are because nobody acts human. Everybody acts like they're simply a cardboard character in a script giving information to the audience so that they can make the logical leap to the next few scenes. And how embarrassing is that, We'll tolerate that in those stupid Transformer movies where it's big, giant, complicated robots with testicles banging against each other. And it's like, what's the dialogue in between? It doesn't matter. Just wait for the next action sequence, right? But we expect more from these Star Wars movies. Empire Strikes Back had a pedigree of Lawrence Kasdan, Lee Brackett, and Irvin Kershner, And the only reason it was so good is they shut Lucas out. Look at what happened when he came back for Jedi. I just finished the giant coffee table Jedi book, so I think I have to go back and talk more about Jedi because I have a much better understanding of the movie. And not just emotional in how I felt watching it, but what the movie really is. And that's how Attack of the Clones gets so much bile heaped at it because I'm watching it as not only a Star Wars fan, but a movie fan. And I like movies that set up a universe and then play by those rules. It's okay to have gaps in logic if they're part of the universe that it's in. If in Return of the Jedi they're going to build a second Death Star, maybe they shouldn't have the same weakness as the first one. Maybe they should build that core first and then surround it by 13 layers of titanium or whatever, unobtainium that can't be breached by anything. And instead, they build the same spacecraft. And not to digress into Jedi, it's very hard not to, but Lucas wanted a shorthand. We'll have another Death Star. We show that, the audience knows what we're building. Okay, fine, I get that. Nothing wrong with a shortcut. But nobody learns any lessons in these movies. Nobody learns a lesson. Nobody says, oh my God, this happened in the past, so that the current thing that's happening, I will act a certain way. And that's where the movies lose you. Even if you're not a mega movie nerd like I am and follow every detail and every plot device, even if you're not like that, your brain knows. Your brain knows that something isn't right. And that's why you come out of a movie like Attack of the Clones feeling like it's hollow. Like it's one of those chocolate Easter bunnies that looks so great in the package. And you open it up and it's hollow Palmer wax chocolate. And it's like, you know what? I should have just looked at the poster of Attack of the Clones because it's 10 times better than the movie. So the whole point of the Tatooine journey is to tie up the loose end of Anakin's mom, have her die, and then they take off. Right there's some sort of moment where everybody decides to convene to Geonosia for the big climactic battle. And God, I'm such a Star Wars. I'm not an apologist because I'm not an apologist, but I'm such a Star Wars hopeful. Like, it doesn't matter what happens. I just think that somehow they're going to pull this crap off in the end, Like, it sucked up until now, folks, but hang on, because I know they got something up their sleeve. But, all they have up their sleeve, all that the prequel movies have up their sleeve is that they have ILM on their side. So if something's not working, they just throw more effects at it. And that's no more apparent than the Geonosian scenes, because first, I guess they had a test screening or a Lucas screening and decided that they couldn't just go from A to B, so they added in the droid factory sequence. Now, oh my God, the droid factory sequence is mind-numbing. It doesn't further the story. It's simply another action beat. And the problem is that the things that are happening in it are so fantastical and so absurd that your brain, my brain, just turns off. Like it's just white noise. It's just something going on in the background until the story decides to kick in, right? They flit around on what looks like the pie level of Donkey Kong, the really far level in. After the jumping jack one, there's a pie level on conveyor belts. That's exactly what it looks like, and it has the same kind of vibe too. Like it's just over the top, as fast as they can, action, over. And there's no payoff. I mean, it's just eye candy, and I hate that phrase because the first time I ever heard the word eye candy in reference to a movie was when Beetlejuice pops out of the model and he's got that hat on and it's got all the little carousel creatures that are going around in a circle, and somebody on that film called it eye candy. Like it's not essential to the plot that this be here. He could just wear a hat. He couldn't wear any, maybe he's not wearing anything, but they decided we'll just put something in because it's eye candy, right? And that's fine on some of those early Tim Burton movies because a lot of it is eye candy. A lot of it is, wow, look at the production design of this movie. The Batman movie is all production design. It's almost a period piece in some respects, in most respects, right? But when you're talking about the prequels, and Lucas is talking about eye candy, he's not talking about a few creatures that walk by that you go, wow, look at the amazing design. I've never seen a creature design like that. I can't wait to buy that as a toy. No, instead, eye candy is a blur of action. It's stuff going on so fast and so furious that you don't even know what you're looking at. You don't even know, and that's really sad. I know that they think audiences have gotten so attuned to this fast editing and over-the-top stuff that happens so quickly, but I would argue against it because when you tally up the greatest action sequences of all time, I don't think any of the current modern-day ones are going to hold up because they're too fast, they're too fake. You're not impressed with them because there's no artistry to them. There's no real danger. And I think for a good action sequence, you need good geography, you need good choreography, a sense of danger, and a sense of purpose. When Indiana Jones takes off after the truck to get the Ark of the Covenant, it sets in motion what could be the best action sequence of all time. Because it's all real, the stakes are high, we know the geography, we know what's going on at all moments. We know what's going on. And he takes on an entire armada, entire platoon of these German guys to get this box and to get it safe, right? Compare that to the Droid Factory sequence, where it's just a bunch of cartoon robot arms and robot this, and 3PO's head gets taken off, and R2 can fly. R2, oh God, I just want to groan so bad at that R2 can fly stuff. It's like, wait a minute. You can fly, dude? We've had 10,000 instances where you flying would have helped out immensely. And now I know it's like, well, he only flies there because the technology caught up. Whatever. And I know that they never even addressed it in the movie as to why R2 can fly in a Clone and Sith, but not A New Hope. Because in the literature, they said, well, flying R2 units was outlawed at such and such a date. Well, you know what? I don't care about that because it only matters what's on the screen. And if in two consecutive movies, this guy can fly and then he can't, there's that leap in logic that I'm not willing to take. And that's where the movie just derails. The minute R2 leaps off that ledge and flies, I'm done with this movie. In a movie fraught with problems, I am done the moment that stupid R2 unit can fly through the air. How's it being powered? If they got jets that small, why isn't everybody using them to fly? Why is Boba Fett the only one with a giant jetpack that can fly around for 10 seconds? R2's he can fly? He's all CGI now. The one robot that's not a man in a suit that they've done so well in each of these movies with a personality and he's so real. When I was a kid, R2 was real. He wasn't a prop. He wasn't something they pulled along on strings or that Kenny Baker used a handle to turn the head around. To me, he was real the same way Yoda was real. And when you replace something that you can do real with this CGI garbage so that you can do what? Make him fly? Then you've lost. You've lost the audience. And what do you want? What do you want, Lucas? Do you want to lose everybody in the audience that you've had up until now so that you can gain all the 4-year-olds? How is that a good trade? The 4-year-olds are not going to buy all the merchandise. They're not going to buy the R2 unit that came out that had pop-out jets, for goodness sake. Nobody wants this crap. Nobody wants him to fly. R2 shouldn't fly. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Compounded right next to it that 3PO's head's been transplanted with a battle droid head who goes, Roger, Roger. Oh, God. I just wish I could echo my voice 10,000 times for a groan on this whole sequence. It's superfluous. It doesn't need to be there. It needs to be cut out. This movie could have been 20 minutes shorter by cutting out all this junk. So then everybody's captured. They're held in some sort of big blue light show thing, right? And then we're led into the arena. And we've got the big Ben-Hur arena sequence with not one, but 3 different types of creatures. One creature for everybody in the arena. And what are the creatures, how are they trained? Are they trained not to attack each other? They're trained only to attack the people? Well, that's convenient. Once again, the gap in logic destroys the credibility of the film. 3 giant creatures that don't attack each other, that only attack one person at a time. And one creature that's so skilled, he can rip Padme's outfit at the midriff, but not her skin. And I know that they're trying to echo Leia's outfit from Jedi because, we're like chasing Amy, we're chasing slave Leia our whole lives. All of us kids, you guys who were kids 12, 13, 14, 15 when Jedi came out. Spent our whole lives chasing Slave Leia, right? So this is supposed to be the homage to it. Now, don't pay any attention that it's the second movie, not the third movie. So the homage doesn't even work in movie consecutive terms. Like it's just, we'll just throw some more crap in there. Let's have Natalie Portman take some of her gear off because she's been so dressed up the whole movie. Well, other than the leather outfit at the fire scene, we'll have her get her outfit ripped in a sexy way, right? Remember when those Unleashed toys came out? This Padme figure was so ridiculous. She looked like something that Frazetta had painted. Never mind that Portman didn't look anything like that. That's why we liked her, because she looked kind of normal. They weren't hiring Megan Fox for Transformers and shooting her like an object. This was a real actress. The whole reason she's in the movies, she's the one with chops. Her and Ewan McGregor are carrying this nonsense on their backs. So they have the big arena scene. It looks completely fake. The long shots look like little toys. And, God bless you, ILM. I revere the work that ILM does. Everything they do, man, the gold standard of effects. The problem is we just don't buy any of this stuff. We know they didn't build an arena. We know that all those insect Geonosian guys are all fake. Everything's fake, man. They're on a giant green screen acting against tennis balls on sticks, man. So they have this big action scene in quotes, and Jango Fett's there with his kid, little Boba Fett, right? And I'm not sure why he's there. I think his job is done at this point. They've paid him to try to assassinate the queen. It looks like it's about to happen now, so maybe he's done. And we have this big sequence where Christopher Lee and the stereotype Chinese guys from Episode 1 are there, and they're gloating again. It's the same. I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to talk to you. The creatures will kill you, Mr. Bond. And it's so dumb, and I'm scratching my neck. I'm so frustrated even talking about this trash. And just like in Jurassic Park, at the big moment when all is lost and everybody's going to die, right? A giant spaceship lands from the sky. Nobody saw it coming in. Nobody had radar on. Nobody was standing at the back with binoculars. Nobody warned anybody. They just land a troop carrier right in the middle of the arena. All the Jedi come out. It's a big friggin' battle, right? They got all the clone troopers with them. The lasers are going off. It's the lightsaber battle. It's the big Jedi battle that everybody's been waiting for since Star Wars. Since Obi-Wan Kenobi mentioned the Clone Wars in 1977, we've been waiting for this sequence, and it's a cosmic letdown. Because it's just dumb. There's nothing real. There's no weight to it. Nobody dies who matters. I think that what happened was that George Lucas has always thought of these movies as kid movies. Always. And they've always been trying to build towards their version of the G.I. Joe cartoon of the 1980s. Bloodless battles. They did it in Phantom Menace with Gungans against robots where nobody died. The robots were decommissioned. They turned themselves off. So in Attack of the Clones, we're back to the same thing. It's computer-generated bugs against computer-generated clone troopers. Where somebody dies, it don't matter because there's 17 of the same guy right there all speaking the same way. And let me tell you, I was bored to tears. And how sad is that at the big finale of this Star Wars movie that the statement a giant Star Wars fan says is, I'm bored, and there's more head scratching moments of Jango, the greatest bounty hunter in the universe, doesn't turn to Dooku and say, hey, I've already been paid. This is your business. I'm out of here. No, he jumps down into the fight. What stake does he have in this? He doesn't care who wins or loses. He's only in it for himself, and yet he jumps down to face off against Samuel L. Jackson. I was going to say Nick Fury, but I couldn't think of it fast enough. So he faces off, and of course he gets beheaded Of course, because George Lucas has got, again, something with amputations and beheadings and the whole bit. Bloodless, the lightsaber cauterizes it, so there's no Kill Bill fountain of blood or anything. And I swear to God, I saw this opening night when young Boba picked up Jango Fett's helmet. Everybody in the audience was convinced. We knew he was going to tip it up and that head was going to roll out. We were going to get that scene from 7 that you never see. And instead, nothing happened. Who knows where the head went? Somebody took it home, and then Boba has that little moment like, oh, I will avenge thee, father. We don't care, man. And then the battle rages on out in the sand. And there's a couple of cool shots of the soldiers moving into the dust and fighting. It's all fake. It's all cartoon. They get on the ships to chase after Dooku. And it looks like they drive 10,000 miles away over the sand dunes to chase him. And Padme falls out of the ship. It's all just so by the numbers boring. It was funny the first night I saw it because, again, you have to go back to sense of geography in your action sequences for them to work. The audience has to know, where are you? What is going on in the surroundings? And when Padme falls out, those ships go on for like hundreds of miles. And the first thing she says to the clone troopers who pick her up is, we got to get to that hangar. Get to the hangar? What are you talking about? What hangar? How do you know there's a hangar? That'd be like me looking out my window and knowing what's going on at the Matterhorn. I'm in Riverside, by the way, so that probably would not work. So we get the sequence in the hangar that Padme was talking about. And Anakin and Obi-Wan fight Dooku, and they're both subdued because he's a badass, because he's Christopher Lee. And we get another groan-inducing moment in a movie of groan-inducing moments where Yoda pulls out his lightsaber and has a lightsaber battle with Count Dooku. It's just so ridiculous, If you get over the thrill of seeing Yoda pull his saber, that's pretty cool. I'll give you that. I will give it to you. He opens his cloak and that saber floats out, and it's a little green saber just like him. Fantastic. But the battle that comes after that it's illogical. He's too short. He's flying all over. He would have expended all his energy jumping up and down off of the rafters. It's a real bore fest. It's just not what you want. It's almost comical, and in a movie that's trying to play it serious, in a sequence that's trying to play it really serious because Anakin's had his hand chopped off, and Obi-Wan's been incapacitated, and Yoda's fighting the fight. It just comes off as like a joke. It comes off as like, well, you guys wanted this. Not my fault. You guys asked for it. Here you go. So Yoda fights, and Dooku gets away, and the movie's coming to an end, thank goodness. But there's still time for a couple more scenes of nonsense, and they do bear mentioning because they're the last scenes. And the last scenes are telling you either the story is ended or we're moving on. When Han and Luke get their medals, you walk out of that theater just on cloud 9. They got their medals, man. They're heroes. This movie ends two ways. It ends with Anakin and Padme's wedding with the reveal of his robotic hand. Hello. Which, again, nobody cares. Nobody cares. This girl's... It's like when one of your friends hooks up with a complete idiot and you finally get an invite to the wedding and you're like, I'm not going to that wedding. That guy's a moron. Now, I don't know if he's a mass killer like this guy, but I'm not going to the wedding. I'm not supporting it. And then in the most head-scratching moment is right at the end when they show all the troops getting on the fake Imperial cruisers, the Star Destroyers. And Yoda's looking out over the expanse of troops, and he goes, begun, the Clone Wars have. Okay, the Clone Wars have begun, and we're not going to get them. They're not going to show them, so it doesn't matter. We've been talking about the Clone Wars since 1977, and we're never going to see them. Oh, they're going to show them on TV in some yo-yo bunch of cartoons. But I'm not watching that. I'm watching the movies. The movies are canon. Everything else is superfluous, right? The movies are where it counts, right? And not only is that statement maddening because they're not going to show it to us, right? But as a fan, what are you supposed to get out of that? What are you supposed to get out of the fact that the stormtroopers are on the ships taking off to battle somebody, right? We're never, but they've flipped the script on who the bad guys are, right? So for this movie and then most of the next movie, the stormtroopers are the good guys. The clone troopers are the good guys. Like, I don't even know who I'm rooting for anymore. It's so convoluted. It's so silly. It's so overly, unnecessarily complicated that I don't know who to root for in the movie. And it's not like I need the good guy to wear white and the bad guy to wear black to like the movie, because that's what Star Wars was. But you need to know who's on whose side. But because at the end of that movie, all you can think of is, well, they managed to create the Empire. Good job, guys. You put the Emperor in power in this one, and then you built him an army. Well, that's a big downer, and I get that Empire was a downer, but Empire was a downer that you could see. In this one, unless you really, truly know what's going on, unless you've got the information given to you from the first three movies, the end of Clones makes zero sense as to what we're supposed to be rooting for. What are we hoping for? You know, I've gone to a football game in a strange town. I don't know which team is which. Not that I would go to a football game, but you get the analogy. All right, well, I've talked at least over an hour on a single movie, Attack of the Clones. I'm out of breath. I'm out of words. I'm out of patience for this movie. I don't care about it. I don't want to talk another minute about it. I can't stand it. I never want to watch this movie again. This is a case where I have seen enough, man. And it's not even like, smell this milk, it's bad. This is bad all the way around in a way that I don't need to repeat it. I've talked about Attack of the Clones, so I'm blue in the face, man, and I'm done. I'm tired. I hate this movie. It has, I'm going to go out on a limb, I bet it has 40 mind-maddening leaps of logic. There's probably more. I bet I could do a list and tell you all of the gaps of logic in this movie. You go rewind and write them out for me. Tell me how many there are. There's too many. A movie gets one or two passes before you're done, right? If Die Hard had this many leaps in logic, you'd never want to watch it. You know? It's very rare that a movie has so many leaps in logic and yet it still is entertaining. You know, I could probably count The Rock and Con Air as these kinds of movies, guilty pleasures that are over the top, silly, but yet somehow manage to work. Attack of the Clones is not that movie. There's not enough crowd-pleasing moments for it to be that movie. And even if there were 10 or 15 really good moments, they're all undone by that droid factory scene. And Padme asking him, "What's wrong, Anakin? What's wrong?" He should have turned to her and said, "The script, Padme. The script." All right, everybody, that's 91 Reasons. Attack of the Clones episode. Hope you dug it. I am the voice, Jeff Tucker. You can contact me on our Facebook page if you have any questions. If you want to talk about Attack of the Clones, I might do it. I might not. I'm seriously done talking about this movie. All right. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?